Hello and welcome to a Shared Screens podcast, an SSP as we call it in the back end for us. Joining me as part of Shared Screens, we have Chris, aka RemelPack92, and
Yo.
LeighErin. How we doing, yo?
Chris, did you just almost die? Are you
I
okay?
got the moment you hit the record button, I got the hiccups, and I don't know what the fuck is wrong with me, dude. I was like, I'm like trying to hold it in. It hurt.
It's great because the entire
It's
time
still
Chris
going.
was there, never had any issues. But then we hit the record button, and suddenly an issue.
Generally, the moment you press the button, I went. I was like, no.
And why I
Man, that's
panicked is you were muted, so from my end, it was just we hit record. Chris grabs his chest.
I felt it coming, so I muted myself real fast, and I go.
30 seconds in, Chris collapses from a heart attack.
Is there really any other Shared Screens way than that just happened? And like, is there? I don't think there is. So, besides that, Chris, how we doing?
Kill me. I'm fine.
I feel like we're all a little tired, but we're here.
I'm good. It's been a long weekend here in the States, and that's been really, really nice. You know, sure. I was like, cool, I'm gonna do lots of stuff. And then I did nothing. I'm about halfway through Resident Evil 4 again. That's what I've been doing this weekend. I have other games that I could and should play. And then I was like, but what if I just went through Resident Evil 4 again real fast? And then I saw Resident Evil 2, the remake, now on Game Pass. And I'm like, might have to.
Well,
Chris is kind of getting stuff done, depending on how you look at it. LeighErin, how's your stuff going?
I didn't have off. So we have a floating federal holiday at my job.
Gotcha.
And we just got back. Like, it was one of those things where it's like, I could have a long weekend and be even more behind than I already am. Or I could catch up.
I've been looking at like this stack of like half-made Rumble Pack videos that I'm just sitting on. And I was like, I could finish it even one of these. And then I went, or I could replay Resident Evil 4.
You son of a bitch.
I
get
was
it.
on
I totally do.
Such a good kick last week of like actually writing and working on my work in progresses. And I was like, hell yeah, I'm setting myself up for a great start to the year. It's going to be amazing. Haven't written since.
Yeah, it's still early.
Touched anything since.
You can turn it around. You got a lot of time. For this year. So the thing I wanted to get into is just like a small little like icebreaker here. What items? And I promise you, there's something I'm driving at. But what items or things do you look up reviews for? Like 4 out of 5 stars for this. Like what item or drink? I don't know. I'm driving at something. So
just about anything that I'm purchasing for the first time that I haven't bought before.
But you genuinely will like seek out said reviews. Like you go out of your way to find them and look at them up. Okay. So I don't.
like recently even I can give you an example. There's because I'm starting a big like fitness thing. I know it's like a thing January. I'm gonna get fit or whatever. But they just announced the dates for TwitchCon. I was like, I'm gonna be there, and I was like, I'm not gonna go see all my friends and be not hot. So I got to get hot by September.
We support hot Chris.
So I've been looking at a bunch of like I've got a bunch of like supplements and stuff, and what I'm really looking for are like meal replacement things because after I get back from Disney World at the end of February, I want to start like a big cut. I was gonna do it beforehand, and then I was like, but I'm gonna go eat a bunch of shit in Disney. I'm not gonna ruin all of that over a long weekend and cut beforehand. And so there's this company called Huel, Huel, that has like this whole like meal replacement thing, and they do like you can get like a cup, you put it in, you put hot water, it cooks it right, and then you eat that. And so I was looking at a bunch of reviews.
Why I have been getting ads for this now?
Possibly. There's definitely
company before, and then my fucking Twitter, every other ad is this company.
There's also definitely a time where I was trying to find some reviews on them on YouTube, and I may have still been signed into the Shared Screens account.
There it is, ladies and gentlemen. Definitive proof.
that might have happened. Who's to say either one way or the other?
That's funny. Dude, the amount of times I've like tweeted or retweeted or liked something on the shared screens account and had been like, God damn it, and then I had to go back through, undo it, go to my account.
So many times, because sometimes you'll when you get notifications on the on your phone, like you just get the button notification, it doesn't tell you what account it's for, and so I'll click it, I'll be like, oh, that's funny, and then I'll go to tweet something, and I'll be like, I'm on the fucking shared screens account now. I gotta.
Then you're like, wait, 20 minutes ago I did a thing.
Yeah,
and what infuriates me about this is, as somebody who works in social media, Twitter, I refuse to call it X, Twitter is the only app that won't show you what account you're getting the notification
to.
Sure.
Instagram and Facebook all show you, like everything else shows
Threads
you which
does it
account
too.
you're logged into.
Yeah.
Like, what can be the positive of that? I can't imagine anything that would be beneficial from not doing that.
Exactly. Like
just not having to code it in the back end, I guess.
And it's just like
I assume, because I mean, there's like 12 people working at Twitter right now. I mean, like I don't imagine they have the manpower to fix it.
Sure. It's also like, it's just brutal because I'll like shit that has nothing to do with shared screens. That I don't want to accidentally force into your feeds.
Sure.
Because like there was,
unlike Chris, ads.
Yeah. Because like I ended up in the shared screens, like logged out of my own Twitter and just in the shared screens, and didn't notice when some like really stupid Broadway drama was going on. And I'm the worst kind of person, and I'm fascinated by any kind of drama. Like, I literally started watching Vanderpump Rules because I watched other podcasters I liked covering Scandal. And I was like, I need it. I need all the stupid gossip. Like, give it to me. And I liked like 8 million tweets about it. And then I don't know if you guys are in like the book side of the internet and experienced Sungate and the author who thought she could copyright the sun. I was logged into the shared screens account, watching that happen live, liking tweets, and then realized I was going to open us up to something I didn't want to.
Now, when you say the sun,
like, okay, I'm going to give you the insane Reader's Digest version. So
like the sun,
like the sun, like powers from the sun, which is a thing that has existed since mythology has been born. Like there are like 6 different Greek gods that do it, all this shit. But there was
I'm gonna trademark the state of Iowa.
There was this white author who wrote this book about a girl from Nigeria, which is already bad. If you're a white author from Mississippi, you have no business writing a book about somebody who is native to Nigeria. That is just
not a great choice.
I don't know. I'm sorry to tell you this.
It's definitely, you're definitely like creating hurdles for yourself that you shouldn't. You know?
And at one point, this character is taken back in time to Britain in 1778 and voluntarily joins slavery so that nobody can find her powers, which is the craziest fucking shit to put in a book ever. And what's crazy is, I don't mean to be like the problematic history lore police here, but she writes it because she released the whole thing online to prove she wasn't a bad writer, which was a terrible idea. She's a terrible writer. But in it, she like the little section where this girl like voluntarily puts herself in slavery is very much a southern US southern cotton plantation, but it's supposed to be in England. Which I don't mean to be that kind of person, but like cotton plantations and big plantations like that don't exist in England. That's not really what the slaves were used for there. And like a basic Google search. But anyway, so she started attacking this Nigerian author who's being published, and her debut comes out this year, who wrote a book that uses Nigerian mythology, because again, she is Nigerian, that involves a character that has powers of the sun. And this white American author went on a rant for weeks about how she was plagiarizing. And then when everybody was like, why the fuck do you think she's plagiarizing? And she was like, well, she's Nigerian and Nigerians are known for cyber crimes. And everybody was like, oh, so you're just racist. Sick.
Got it.
And then 30 seconds, like right after that, she made a post talking about how she used to be a cop. And we were like, oh, you make so much sense now. I was getting deeply involved in this drama on the shared screens account, and noticed when I went to respond to something, it was like, oh, I have to undo everything.
I like it.
You
I'd
gotta,
be okay with that,
retrace my
honestly.
steps for the last like 2 hours. Like, uh-oh.
I was
Also,
so deep in it too because she just wouldn't stop tweeting, and then she would be like, "Okay, I'm logging off Twitter for the night because people are telling me to unalive myself," and then 5 minutes later would like post a new tweet, and it's like, bitch. At one point, she was naming every black person she's ever met. It's the craziest shit I've ever seen in my life.
oh my god,
There's a certain point where it's just like just
Take the hint.
get off, just log
Put
off,
the
just get
phone
off,
down,
go touch
walk
grass
away.
for like an hour. Like,
Take the hint,
please.
for Christ's sake.
Sorry.
Just to switch gears, it's a common theme of anyone on the podcast saying shared screens instead of screens, because I think LeighErin just did it as well. I did it like in the first 5 seconds of the Game of the Year podcast.
Of our
and
Goaty podcast too.
Yeah,
It's
I just rolled with
awesome.
him like, fuck it.
It's also the Dimension 20 Fantasy High just came back, and there's a character named Squeam, and all he says is his own name. It's just Brendan Lee Moan going
Yes.
Squeam. And so Jordan and I back and forth to each other have just been going
Shared
Squeam. Like, so it's just
Anyway.
in my brain. Anyway,
I do
things
like
I
that.
look
To
at
bring,
for reviews.
yeah.
I am a woman, so clothing companies that I've never
Mhm.
bought from before, you always got to look for reviews because you got to find out if it's
Sure.
fast fashion being made in like a really bad sweatshop. Like Romwood
Yeah,
cider
that's
is
always
the big
tough.
one. Yeah,
That's a good
'cause
point.
cider
Yeah,
was
I didn't even
charging
think
like
about that.
real prices, and you Googled it, and it's like, this is all from sweatshops in Taiwan. And it's like,
I mean,
okay, never
that was the
mind.
whole thing with Shein, right?
Shein,
if you
yeah.
remember, like Shein, to the point where they
It's
like
not pronounced shine, crack.
to the point where they like, to prove that it wasn't like fast fashion sweatshop or whatever, they invited a bunch of creators to come out and see their workshop, and they like faked like a facade of what the whole thing was.
I also
It
love
was
the
wild.
clip that one creator got where the guy that runs it was like, ask any of the women down there. They love their jobs. Well, yeah, you brought in a bunch of people with
Yeah.
cameras. You probably also threatened them.
It's like they were all like paid actors or some shit to come in there and talk up the company. Like, it was bizarre
crazy.
shit.
Yeah, I brought up the question. I mean, clearly we're opening other bottles, like other things here. But like, I asked the question because I recently bought a VR headset, and that like I started looking at reviews for like the VR titles that were on there. And I promise you, I'm also driving to another thing. But that was like the only thing I've ever looked at reviews for, and I realized that I'm like, this is weird. But like VR, I was like, I really
Especially
want this
when
to
we
be like
make reviews for things. I just want to put that. That's very funny.
It's very valid. I don't read a lot, but you think I would be someone who does. I did recently buy the Last Ronin, the TMNT run of that, or like the first volume or whatever. And that's really, really good. And there's like a second volume coming out. It might be already out or it's out soon anyway. But I really enjoyed that, so I'm getting back into reading. But yeah, with it being VR, I was like, there's a lot of garbage on VR, so I really wanted to like pick and choose what I was buying. But what I'm really driving at, here's the kicker, everyone. As a joke, I threw out to, because my roommate is female, and I'm married to my wife, who is also female. And I was like, you guys, they were just bored sitting on the couch, like doing nothing. And I was like, you guys should look up reviews of sex toys and just like sip wine and have a good time.
Sex toys, wild.
And I said this as a joke. Came back 2 hours later. They were still doing it. And they were just having a jolly good time. And I was like, I can't imagine that being that long, but they were loving it, and they wouldn't shut up about it.
This might be a woman thing, but yeah,
sure.
Looking at reviews is so fun, especially on Etsy, like the fucking weird ones that you can find on Etsy. Like Jordan, literally, if either of you message Jordan privately right now and we're like, did LeighErin go through a phase in college where she would get high and cry laughing reading sex toys reviews? He will immediately answer yes, because I did. Because it's just like, you find the most random shit, and it's like, why? Yeah. I get that this is anonymous, but why are you just giving me all the details about you and your husband's sex life right now?
Yeah, no,
some are like,
it's strange.
Some are like, it fit him, but not me. 1 out of 5 stars, and I was like, whoa, didn't expect that.
Yeah.
Anyway,
especially
it makes me think of. Last year, I spent some time with family out in most of my extended family on my mom's side lives out in Tennessee, and so we were out there, and one of my uncles just last year, in the year of our Lord 2023, had discovered what I think might have been one of the original like internet viral sensations, which was they had just then discovered the internet reviews for sugar-free gummy bears.
I thought you were gonna say one of the original sex toys, so I'm glad
No,
this is where this went.
no. Which, if you remember,
Austin, what would that even be?
I don't
there
know.
was
I
this
don't know. A
there was this
rock?
there was this one brand of gummy bear in particular that had what was it, like xylitol or something in it, that essentially just
Oh,
it just like makes you
makes you
shit.
poop?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like violently. And
Mhm.
so it became like a thing where people would go, they'd order these things, they'd shit their brains out, and then they'd leave like these reviews, and it became such a meme where people would go in and leave like tons of reviews on Amazon and stuff for all of these gummy bears, talking about like the explosive shits that it gave them, and like they were all I can hear my wife laughing in the living room about it. They were all just like dying laughing, and I was like, that's so funny. I was like, that was one of the first things I remember like really catching on and being like a
Mhm.
like a deep internet thing, like for terminally online people like
Sure.
myself. And like,
Yeah.
15 years later, they're like, have you guys seen these? And I was like, yeah, when I was like 16. That was
Yeah.
so funny.
That's true. I haven't thought about stuff like that in a long time,
Yeah.
Well,
if I'm being honest.
with the review things, with like
Sure.
shit like that and sex toys specifically, it's
Mhm.
also in a post Twilight, Teen Wolf,
Yeah.
ACOTAR, Throne of
That makes
Glass
a lot of
world.
sense.
Monster
Mhm.
fucking has gotten really like popular. Sorry, I hate
It's
it as much as
definitely a
you do,
thing.
Austin, but like
Define monster. All right. Are you just going the vampire and that kind of thing?
no, like
Is that what you're getting
werewolf
at?
No,
while
there's a
they're in
broad,
wolf
yeah.
form,
Yeah.
That's kind of where I was going, but I was
Well,
Austin,
I mean,
I just didn't know
look at how Baldur's Gate 3 like advertised itself, right? Like one
a
of the biggest
bear.
things was the bear
a
fucking
bear.
scene. Where like, now granted, it is a person
A
that
bear.
has the power to turn into a bear.
Shapeshift.
But in the cutscene, I believe they were playing as Asterion, which makes it even funnier. Where Asterian's like, no, stay in the bear form. Where you're like, whoa.
He's getting freaky.
That's how they advertised the game.
It's true. That was like the first thing I heard. That was the first headline I
that
heard
was one of
about.
the very first like developer gameplay previews ever.
Mm-hmm.
And
That was after like the early access, I think, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like that was like years after the early access. It just like came out.
It was right before the 1.0.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
I'm also gonna ruin something for you guys. Meaning just
Well,
that
add
I'm
it to
giving
the
you
list.
information that you probably didn't want, but it's the world I'm in.
I think that's just what podcasts are, if I'm being honest.
There's a really popular series on. It's really, really popular on Book Talk, and it's literally an entire series about how this alien ship full of human women that have been kidnapped to be sex trafficked by this evil alien race crash land on an ice planet full of like 8-foot tall blue barbarians that they crash land, and the original aliens, the human trafficker aliens, dump all the women, and so all these women just fall in love with these giant. It's literally called like I'm in love with an ice barbarian or some shit like that.
No,
it really. I'm not kidding. Ice Planet Barbarians, the novel series, guys. Just Google Ice Planet Barbarians.
You couldn't even call it like ice tipped something or anything like that. Come on.
Yeah. So the very first book, there are 7 books.
Be sure to Google search it while signed into the shared screens account.
Will do.
Yeah. It like there's a book for every woman. There's also a Christmas one.
It's like an anthology series.
No, straight.
Did y'all watch Futurama? I'm just thinking snoo. Like
death
by
snoo.
But like,
okay,
Austin, without getting like fully gross. Obviously, it plays into the whole mating thing because for some reason women. I don't mean to yuck anybody's yums, but the whole like that's my mate shit really freaks me out. I'm not into it. It makes me wildly uncomfortable.
You're not alone.
Didn't like it in Twilight. Didn't like it in my full review of the second ACOTAR book was it's amazing to me that Sarah J. Maas somehow wrote a mating thing that is worse than the one in Twilight. Impressive. Deserves an award. But
my wife is currently reading those Maas books, by the way.
I need to have a conversation because I hate reading them. Like I am full on hate reading this book series.
There's an account that I follow on TikTok where it's just this one guy who normally talks about like sports or the things that are going on or whatever, who is currently like sort of doing the same thing of hate reading. Yeah, I think it's
Yeah, I know
It's
who you're
Andrew. Yeah,
talking about.
where he's hate reading a Court of Roses and Thorns, like the series now at this point.
Well, because why I feel like sorry,
And that's how
Austin,
I found
why
him.
do I
He's
feel
a
about it?
Kansas City sports fan. Yeah.
Yeah.
Shocked.
He has a huge Arrowhead thing behind him is the only reason I was like, is it the Kansas City Chiefs fan?
And
So
the
Austin,
Royals and Kansas City Current.
what are your sisters your
Wow.
wife's opinion on them so far
What in
that
12 minutes? She is literally just like
12
reading to
minutes?
read.
Sorry.
Like she's not. Did you just now get that?
It took a second.
It took a second to click.
Believe it or not, I reviewed that game. I actually liked the core concept of the game. Everything else around it fucking sucks, but the core concept's really cool.
Weird.
She is someone who doesn't read a lot, so she was just taking like suggestions from people, and she's like, I'm just reading to read this now. So I don't know if she's like enjoying it or hate reading it. I think she's literally just reading it to like do something constructive, but she has been like, what the fuck is happening? And she has skipped total like parts.
Oh, dude,
so
they're all like 800. The first one's like 300 pages. Okay, so here's why I feel like before everybody like comes for me, because this could be the one place that if I make this the short that people are going to come for me. Before everybody comes for me, I've read all the books. I took them out from the library because I absolutely refused to give Sarah J. Maas her money. And before you say read Throne of Glass, I did. It sucked too. Anyway. I'm also allowed to shit on these because these books came out and were marketed towards YA when I was a teenager. It's absolutely that like Narnia shit of don't quote like the Dark Prophecy to me. I was there when it was fucking written. I was there when it had the shitty ass covers with the white woman with tattoos on it. I'm allowed to talk shit about this crap. Anyway,
sure.
It's terrible. So basically what happened was this woman wanted to fucking write a Beauty and the Beast retelling. Fine, cool, whatever. In the process of writing it, she absolutely fell in love with one of the villain's minions that she was writing and decided to fully reformat the series and have the main character end up with that guy instead. So then she has to do like so the first book's like 300 something pages. It could be a standalone book if she hadn't fell in love with fucking Rysand. And then she publishes the second book, A Court of Mist and Fury. It is 800 goddamn pages long. There is no reason for it. It could be a tight 330, but the reason it's so long is because she has to do a character assassination for the character she just spent an entire book justifying why the main character is in love with him. She has to do a full character assassination that involves him hitting her to like get her to the point where like she's with this other dude now. And then from then on, so the first guy, his name is Tamlin. He does suck, but
Stupid
like
name.
he wasn't I mean, they're fairies. It's fucking whatever. The names literally Austin.
Oh yeah, she
this
did
is
tell
a
me
book
that.
about her falling in love with fairies. The name
And
of the
aren't
main
fairies
girl.
like a rough like fairies aren't like what we
fae.
think, like the normal
Yeah.
fairy. Okay,
Closer to
like
like what
fae.
you'd probably think of as like elves.
Yes.
Sure.
Yeah. And so you have Tamlin, who's the first one.
Because that was a very Celtic thing, was the use of like fae and fairies,
Sure.
but like
Yeah,
the mythology
and it's very much
aligns
that.
very much with like elves. Yeah.
But also
yeah, my gut told me there was something that used it. I just couldn't I couldn't place it, but the word elf works.
It's about fae. The main character in this book, who starts out human, her name is Feyre, which drives me.
A little on the nose.
It makes me so mad, guys. It makes me so angry. Like it's
So
it's like naming your character the chosen one. Like literally your name is
straight
chosen.
up.
Yeah, the guy, you know.
It's
shout
insane.
out to my kids.
And then she spends the entire first book establishing. So Feyre's whole thing is that she likes to paint. And so she spends the entire first book establishing that this dresser that Feyre painted for her and her sisters, it's a 3-drawer dresser. They each have a drawer. Feyre painted the front of it. So on Nesta, who's her older sister, also stupid fucking name. Who the fuck's name is Nesta? She paints flames on it. On her
Nestle
drawer, she
paints... makes them go faster.
Yeah. On her drawer, she paints the night sky. And on the younger sister, Elaine, which is just a really random, very realistic name to be thrown in this world with fucking Rysand or Rhysand. Yeah.
Like the thing I'm currently like working on, like the anime / whatever, I had a naming convention where I took most of my names from like flowers, like lilac and like cool. Lotus and like Yeah,
Nah,
because I think they just sound cool, but I at least had a
which is
theme that
cool
I just
because
stuck with.
if they're gonna be stupid, at least have a thing you look at like Dragon Ball Z, where like all of the Saiyan names are just names for vegetables. I mean, Vegeta, the Prince of all Saiyans, his name is Vegetable, and then everyone else like Kakarot is carrot. I
Right.
mean, that's you have all of that.
and
Yeah, it is, man.
the
Tail
series
and
is just
Caulifla,
terrible
like
because she introduced also really quick because I still have the Google page up. The whole ice barbarians thing. The planet is called
yeah,
Not
bro,
Bring it
Hoth,
back.
which
cabbage.
like just run with the fact that this ice planet was called Not Hoth. That's what the
Wait,
women
no,
start calling it.
hold on, no, hold on.
They start the
Uh-uh.
women who, because they can't say the real name of the planet because they can't speak the alien language, they call the planet Not Hoth, which
I'm gonna go
makes
kill myself
again
now, I
makes
think.
me very mad.
Yeah.
Anyway, yeah, so it's insane,
Can they
and I
legally get
feel
away with
like
it?
the entire world is
It's not
fucking
off.
gaslighting me
It's not
because everyone on TikTok is like, ACOTAR is so good. It's so good. It is God's
I
gift
like
to
Avatar.
writing. The author is now creating her own MCU across her 3-book series because
No.
ACOTAR.
Everyone
Dude,
is.
oh my.
No one
Okay,
wants that.
we've opened.
Nobody
No one
wants
wants
it
this,
anymore.
but you've opened the door.
I
No one
think
wants
it's. I think
for
Fine.
any medium.
I think what I've learned, both in this conversation, it sounds like you're going through a similar thing, Austin, because my wife also reads a lot of this sort of thing, and like she understands that it's terrible. She likes it because it's bad. It's one of those things where she found that she actually has this bookmark that's got a picture of like Jesus, like that, like it looks like
I know what
he's
bookmark you mean.
looking over the top
Yeah.
of the book, and it goes, "Is this smut?" Um,
Yeah.
and what I have determined now after hearing about all of the trash that is out there and like has like invaded like TikTok and those sorts of things is that it is entirely too easy to publish a book. I think
Dude,
we need to put more barriers up because there's so much just garbage that it's clearly it's not a difficult thing to do.
Also, I think people are just to bring it back to even to sex toys. I think people are just horny, and then people
Oh,
read
for
stuff
sure.
that's
Oh
like
yeah, absolutely.
even
that's the other thing
minorly
too.
like bad. And it's like cool.
Supremely down bad. Like yeah,
Yeah, that's the other thing too, is that these are series that like really do, they're written by a woman in modern times, so they really do focus on like women's pleasure in a way that a lot of other romances don't. Like as somebody who
sure.
reads historical romance, a lot of romance sex scenes end up being from the guy's perspective, which is just kind of not like fun.
Sure.
Also, women who write that,
Well,
how?
because
I don't know how I would even
most. Well, I
sorry.
mean, it's guys are pretty laser focused on kind of one thing. You know what I mean? Like it's not
Yeah.
it can't be the most exciting thing in the world to read about.
Yeah.
And
So
I
okay,
can't
so my follow up question to that, LeighErin, is like, does it deserve credit for that, or is that just there as like, this is the
no,
only like
because
positive thing that you? Okay.
she adds in things, so like Rysand, or
It's like
Rysand, I don't
like
know
she
how you're
understands
supposed
the
to say this
draw
man's
though.
name.
It's because it is from the female perspective at that point, right? Like
Yeah,
to where it's like I get why people would enjoy this part of it.
but then they add
It's kind of
cringy
why I'm asking.
shit
Yeah,
to it.
Sure.
Like Rysand, for
So they just
some
soil it.
fucking reason, has bat
Spoiled it.
wings. They explain why Rysand has bat wings in the book. It makes no sense, and I don't remember. But then she decides for some reason to add in touching a man's wings is like touching his dick. And like nobody touches a man's wings unless they're married, and it feels like how it is described is that like a woman, so Chris, if your wife ran her finger down your wing, it would feel similar to if she did it to your dick. Which is something that didn't need to be there. And then she takes it a step further by going, also, the bigger a man's wingspan, the bigger his dick. And that is canon.
Nice.
Also,
that is
whoa,
fucking
you know
canon.
what they say about big wings, bro.
Literally.
big wing mittens. So wait, are these wings just for show, or can they fly?
No, he can fly. He is
No,
literally
he
like
can't.
the
He's
fin-
ejaculating the whole fucking time. I'm telling you right now.
That's
Well, then,
He's just the whole time. That's all it is.
That's the
Well,
incredible
then
part to me because like one, that's that Simpsons joke of like them doing like now featuring the writer's barely disguised fetish, but then also it's the thing of like wings are they're not they're out. They're just out like in small. Like what happens if you accidentally bump into somebody like
Well,
at
they
the
can
store?
fold them in.
You know,
There's like a whole
It
thing
would make
about how
sense
they
if they
can
were
fold
like,
them
sure,
in.
but like you ever been in a crowded place? Like you're gonna bump into people. You know,
I
like
think it makes sense if they were like ticklish or something, but
Yeah.
not that. There's no way they can practically fly and not have the time of their life, if you know
Well,
what I'm
because
getting
the
at.
other thing is, so they're fighting. So there's
Go
a
for a
main
flight.
bad. There's a main bad that dies in the first book. She doesn't matter. Then there is like a king that they're all fighting. The king is just vaguely evil. I don't really understand why what he wanted to do was bad. They never really explain it. Besides
Were
that
they
he
trying
like
to make it ambiguous?
no, because you don't know him enough
Oh,
for it to be
it's just
like you
bad. It's
want to
just bad
fuck the
writing.
villain. Yeah, it's just like he wants to enslave humans. Which, like, okay.
Hmm.
Um,
Move on.
all
Got
right,
it.
like, cool. This is all very, it's very, and the way he goes about it is so goddamn, it makes no sense. But the one thing that does make sense is if you are fighting a force and they have men that have wings and they can fly, when you shoot them down, what are you gonna aim for?
Just hit
Their
jack 'em
fucking
off.
wings. And that happens in the book. They are shooting ash arrows at his wings. And the entire time I was reading the scene, I was like, so they're just shooting him in the dick? Like they're just this feels like him because he's carrying
like being
Feyre.
at 21
So
Jump
like
Street.
I also think it's really funny. Sorry, I'm bringing it back, but you see someone walking down the street with like itty bitty little baby wings, and you're like, "Oh, poor
Oh,
guy."
no.
right?
Oh,
Like
little dude.
why would you
Like,
make that canon?
what an unfortunate like I'm at, so then like the natural question being is like what if they're a grower, you know, like did the wings get bigger?
And I feel like everybody
But, man, it
Is
looks
that a
like
thing?
they're
Is that a thing for wings?
folded in and then he like opens them and you're like whoa.
Like it's
My man
so
Cameron
weird.
over
Like
there. Holy
sheesh,
God.
all right, I didn't know
And the
you were packing
problem
like that, bro.
He's a grower.
the problem with introducing this is that in the first book, Feyre dies and she gets brought back to life by all the little High Lords. So she gets all their powers, including a shape-shifting power where she can make wings. And they like get into this whole thing about how like your wings can't drag on the ground. And like, oh, also, you guys will
Wait,
love this with the fucking wings. For
does
some
she
reason,
have a penis?
no. But stay with me here,
So how does
Austin.
it correlate?
Keep thinking about it like genitals and stay with me. So the type
okay,
of
I'm with
people
you.
that have the bat wings are the Illyrians, and they're lesser fae. They're not high fae, they're like lesser fae, which we can continue with the
But
elf
they get a
fae.
cool
Like you
name.
have high elves and like wood elves. However,
Dark elves.
Sarah J. Maas, in all of her infinite fucking wisdom, decided to make the Illyrians a warrior race. Cool. Fine. Then she goes into how they're dark skinned. It's like, all right, this is getting weird and uncomfortable. And then she establishes that in canon, women who have wings are forced to have their wings shredded so that they can't fly and can't experience what men can with their wings. She literally writes in a racist version of female circumcision to her fucking smutty fairy book. What are we doing? That didn't need to be there.
Does that service anything, or is it
No.
just there?
It's just
Again,
there, and then it's never. He tells Feyre that story. It's never brought up again.
And you said you've read all the books. Like it's never brought back. It never fits into anything else.
It may. Okay, so here, getting into like the MCU thing and why I have so much issues with this because like that's not what people who are reading seek out. But so Sarah J. Maas, was huge when I was a child, like when I was a young teen, and she had a series called Throne of Glass.
This is the first I've ever heard of her.
Most people have because her books are shit. Throne of Glass came out when I was like 12, I think, originally, and it's also about fae people, and there are 12 books. It was always its own fucking thing. It was never tied into anything else. And then she came out with ACOTAR. Now, this isn't even getting into my issue that all of the smut that is in these books and is very graphic were published and marketed to young adults. It was published and marketed to 13 to 17-year-old girls, which like I am not a prude in any what? Yeah.
Yeah.
And I am not a prude, but Twilight had no smut. Twilight was written by a Mormon. There is no sex. They have sex, and Bella's obsessed with having sex, but they can't have sex until they get married because Edward won't let them. And then it just fades to black. She wakes up the next morning covered in bruises and the bed is broken. Like, that's all you get in Twilight. I didn't understand what happened the first time I read it.
It's implied.
Yeah, it's just heavily implied.
Yeah.
And this is not heavily implied. Anatomy is described. At one point when Tamlin and Rhysand are fighting after Feyre left Tamlin for Rhysand, he's like, do you like how she moans right before she comes? Which is a really crazy thing to put in a book for children. But anyway, so she published Throne of Glass, which is convoluted, confusing, and not good. Then she published ACOTAR, which is convoluted, confusing, and not good. But there were only 3 books. There was A Court of Thorns and Roses, A Court of Mist and Furies, and A Court of Wings and Ruin. All terrible titles. We don't need to talk about it.
Wait, then... Okay. I'm realizing. All right. I didn't realize these were around that long.
Yeah. They've been around forever. I
thought they were new because I didn't start hearing about them until like the last year.
They're all over social media now, which is dumb.
They've been out
that's
forever.
That's why my wife found them.
Yeah.
And
this is what my wife has been reading. Jesus Christ.
Yeah. They wrote these first 3 books. She wrote these first 3 books.
I mean, this is tame compared to what my wife told me. Sorry, but she told me like one small snippet of like the first thing that creeped her, not the first thing, but one of the things she like told me about was like something about licking tears off someone's face or something.
Yes,
and she's like, where are we going with this?
Also in the first book, she establishes that at the Spring Court, which Tamlin is the High Lord of the Spring Court, there are like 8 courts. It doesn't fucking matter. There is some ritual where Tamlin essentially has to take a psychedelic, and then the psychedelic takes over, picks a woman, and he brings her into a cave and fucks her, even though that's not necessarily his mate, because the second you see your mate, you like start vibrating or some shit, and then you can talk to each other in your minds. It's so dumb. But
that's how I met Hallie.
No,
you just walked into a room and suddenly you could share a thought.
Started vibrating, you know?
So she wrote these 3 books, and then ACOTAR was done, everybody thought. And then she wrote, all these books are like 800 pages. She wrote a book that was 200-something pages called A Court of Frost and Starlight, which is essentially just an episode of Full House in this world. But what it is so the first 3 books were a series, and now she's starting a new series that's still in that world with Feyre's sister and a bunch of characters that we met books ago. And now they are all becoming one universe because she has a new series that everybody fucking hated called A House of Crest and Fire or something and Fire. It's a shitty urban fantasy.
Like a blank, and blank.
Because apparently Sarah J. Maas doesn't realize that YA fantasy writing moved on from that naming convention 6 years ago. Like, catch up with the time. It's like a House of Blood and something.
So you're telling me
Earth and Blood.
Like what's the newest book?
The Crescent City series is the newest series, and that is
but it's a straight continuation of
the other thing, or series. No? Because basically ACOTAR, the last book in ACOTAR that we have right now is A Court of Silver Flames, which is in the same world as the first 3, but is like the start of a new series. And then Crescent City has 2 books out that nobody thought had to do with anything she had written before. And then in the epilogue of, I think, the second book, the son of Rhysand and Feyre comes into Crescent City. And then Rhysand shows up at the end. And now she just released a snippet from her newest book that's coming out this month. All of her books are now connected. And I swear to God, she's only doing that because Thorn of Glass and Crescent City aren't as popular on TikTok as ACOTAR is. So, and she came out and was like, you're not going to be able to read the next ACOTAR book, ACOTAR 7 or whatever it's going to be, if you don't read all of Crescent City and all of Throne of Glass. Which, when you have a 12-book series, that's fucked up. There are 12 books in Throne of Glass. And it's
who does she think she is? Huh?
Well, it's just like, it's fucking, people don't want this from Marvel right now. The MCU is actively falling apart, and you're going to turn your book series into the MCU?
I'm beyond burnt out on all of that stuff. Like, I just can't. I can't.
Exactly. Like, fuck
I'll come back in the new Avengers movie.
I'll circle this back around and just say like one, it's too easy. I think it's too easy to publish books apparently because some of the shit that I've heard that happened in these things is
The
heinous.
fucking am
But
I worried?
on the flip side of things though, when you said that it was one, I'm startled to learn that this is considered like or like at least like marketed towards YA. But I recently did
Now it's
actually just
marketed.
reread.
Sorry, now it is
Now
marketed as
it's
new
changed. Yeah.
adult, but new adult didn't exist when they were originally published. That's like a
Yeah.
very
Sure.
new thing.
Sure.
Over like the winter break or whatever you want to call it though, I did actually go get pretty invested in a YA series that had kind of missed me. Which Disney Plus just recently started doing a TV adaptation of Percy Jackson, and which is I read the first book as a teenager back then. My younger brother and sister love it. I think I like kind of just missed most of it because like most of the series started coming out like once I was in like college and stuff. But I did read the first book. I really enjoyed it, and I started the first 3 episodes were out while I was visiting family in Germany, and so we watched those. And I was like, man, I really like this. I'm gonna reread the first book again. I really enjoyed it, and then I read that one, and then the next one, and then the next one, and then I read the entire series in a week.
Wow.
And they're not very long. These are like
Okay.
these are middle school grade books.
Yeah.
But like if you want like genuine really great like YA, it's one of those things to where I was like, one, mad that I slept on it as long as I did, and two, mad that it didn't blow up in the same way that Harry Potter did, because I think it's a vastly superior like similar concept of it's much better written. The characters
Is
are
the author
really
a
really great. The author
cunt?
also not a bigot, so I mean there's that. Um, and they just did a similar thing though to where as I was getting back in, because I knew that there were 5 books, and I read those. I was telling my siblings about it. My brother goes, okay, well you got to read Heroes of Olympus after you do that. And I was like, well, what's that? He goes, it's like a Star Wars sequel kind of deal, new main characters, but the characters from the original series exist. They're older, they're around. And I went, oh sick, that's awesome. I like that a lot. So I have those on my list. And then my brother was also like, oh, and apparently, just because like the popularity of was kind of coming back up with all the news of the TV show and stuff, he wrote a 6th Percy Jackson book last year, and I heard nothing about it.
Huh.
He also, so technically with the Greek, I loved Percy Jackson when I was in middle school. Where I started,
I'm 31 years old. I just read it. I fucking love it. I thought it was amazing. Like I genuinely love it.
I started to age out during Heroes of Olympus, and so I never read. There's another sequel series called Trials of Apollo that I never read, and then he has a series called The Kane Chronicles, which is about Egyptian mythology that is part of the Percy Jackson world, and one called The Magnus Chase, which is with the North's pantheon. I have heard that those are
Amazon
really good. I've never read them.
Like Kindle did give me like a preview of the Norse one while I was reading, and I was like, oh, this is Percy Jackson but Norse, and I was like, cool.
Yeah, and
but
like
the
main
Percy Jackson,
character
like
in
those
that.
5
Yeah.
like Percy Jackson books too. It's that thing of like it just gets better like the more you get in, like each book is better than the last one. But like if you're out there and you want just like genuine really good YA reading, I strongly recommend Percy Jackson. It gives you that sort of like Harry Potter feeling of having like this world within ours that normal people can't see or whatever. But it also like twists Greek mythology into like a modern setting and like does a really cool job of explaining why these gods are still around and interacting with the world. And like coming off of God of War Valhalla too, like I was all in. There was so much stuff in there. So yeah, don't read ACOTAR, whatever. Go read Percy Jackson.
Read Percy Jackson. Just to show you how much I have not read and how like uneducated I am, I think I put together that YA is young adult.
Yes.
Is that true?
Yes.
That is true.
I didn't know that.
That's that like 13 to like that 14 to 17. Yeah.
So
I figured that out on my own with context.
Twilight, to be fair, Twilight was one of the very first YA books. It used to just be children and adult. And then with like the Hunger Games and Twilight and all of that, young adult started to come out, and it was mostly for women. Now young adult has moved into being for like both genders.
They basically needed a way to categorize this sort of like middle ground between
and that's
And now
kind of
there's
how like
now there's
and now it's turned into
new
a whole
adult.
yeah.
thing.
Well, and that developed out because and I can speak to it because I was one of them. There's a really weird period of time when you grew up reading young adult where suddenly young adult is too young because you're in your 20s, but you're not old enough to relate to characters that are like 40, 45. And so it's really
Sure.
hard to find like correct
No,
reading shit.
I'm weird because like in any series or show, anything, my favorite character is always some offshoot random person.
Yeah.
It's never the main character. It's never the main sidekick or whatever. It's always some random person who has one killer episode. I'm like, give me more of that, motherfucker.
Yeah.
He was great.
It just like,
So,
it gets into
it's just weird.
It's hard. It gets more into, as a 22-year-old, it's really hard to be in the first person's perspective of a 15-year-old girl because you're just like, bitch, you're being dumb as fuck, and I can't be mad at you for how stupid you're being because you're 15. But like, come on.
That was me doing Percy Jackson a lot. I was like, stop being a dumb kid, and then I was like, but he is a dumb kid.
He's 12. Yeah,
you know what I mean? Yeah, I was like, he is a dumb kid. Shout out to the cast.
Fundamentally why we all hated the movie was because all of his decisions are 19. Incredibly stupid when you age him up to 16. It's very clearly choices being made by 3 12-year-olds.
And that's about the equivalent of this podcast. 3 12-year-olds. So to like end it all, just to leave us all with just nasty info we gave you about books. Read good young adult books, YA books, or are there good like new adult books, or is that still like a kind of like a mess?
I will die on the hill that Realm Breaker by Victoria Aveyard. I'm a little biased because I fucking love her, but Realm Breaker by Victoria Aveyard is really, really good new adult fantasy. It is not romantasy. It is just straight fantasy.
Romantasy.
There is no smut. Well, that's what ACOTAR like is now because it's not a fantasy novel. It's just horny fairies.
It's creature smut. That's literally what I call it.
Go leave a review on a sex toy and tell them Shared Screen sent you.
Honestly, do that and screenshot it and send it to one of us. You know what? Specifically, Chris. Send it to Chris.
Yeah, send it to me. I don't give a shit. At RumblePack92.
All right. Thank you for watching. This has been the Shared Screens podcast where we talk about creature smut. You're welcome.
Hell yeah.
Goodbye.